Hello folks, and a warm welcome. You're tuned in to My Meditation, the indoor series. My name's Guy Cross, and I'll be introducing you to some interesting people with some interesting ways of using the indoors to help sustain a healthy frame of mind. Sometimes, especially for outdoor lovers or people who can't physically leave the house, it can be hard to keep yourself occupied while confined to your home. I've always been curious as to how other people used indoor hobbies and activities to take care of themselves, and that curiosity led to the birth of this podcast series. My guests will talk about their favourite indoor hobby, and will go into depth of how it helps them find peace of mind. Hopefully one of, if not many of the hobbies within this series will help you, or at the very least inspire you. And that's the whole aim of these podcasts, to fill you with ideas that maybe you hadn't thought of before, and to hear some positive, encouraging, real-life stories from my guests. Sometimes, just hearing someone else's perspective on a hobby or activity gives you a fresh new way of looking at it, which can't be a bad thing, right? So without further ado, let's meet this week's guest. Hello everyone. So this week I'm talking to Matt Pruitt, he comes from Texas in the US, but now lives in New Zealand with his wife and kids. He works for an online music store called TrackSource and is a music producer and DJ. He owns his own record labels called Juiced Music, Cabby Hat Recordings and Underground House Headquarters. And he's moved from the hustle and bustle life of city in Texas and has found himself living in a totally different environment in New Zealand, which we'll get into a little bit later. But I'll just introduce Matt. Hello, Matt. Nice to hear from you today.
Hey, Guy. Thanks for having me on, man.
Oh, no worries. It's a pleasure to have you. It's really good. I'll just explain to everyone how we met briefly. It was back in 2009. I don't know if you remember, actually. But we met online through music, basically. I was putting some events on back in the day, and I was trying to get you to come over to play for us, and things didn't happen for various reasons. But we've kept kind of in touch ever since, haven't we, online? We've been kind of online buddies and checking each other out and seeing what we're up to in life. And it's kind of just continued from there, basically, hasn't it?
Yeah, totally. So it's I've enjoyed, I found myself really enjoying looking at all your pictures and videos. Your journey definitely stood out amongst all the people, and that's saying a lot because it's quite a creative group of people that are in my friends list. So you definitely jumped out though. So I've kept abreast of everything you've been doing online. It's nice. It's a nice. It's just good to look at. It's like it's just like, man, that dude's living the life, man.
No, I'm glad you appreciate it, and just going off onto that subject as well. Like, I know you've come from Texas in the US and you've moved over to the New Zealand now, and I'm guessing you've kind of gotten into the outdoors a little bit more since you've been there. Do you want to tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. Coming from Texas and being the city, it was the concrete jungle.
Yeah.
Of just going to fast food restaurants every day, and I pretty much just played basketball. I was a big basketball player, but leaving that, and then for a brief stop in Miami, when I was working out of the TrackSource offices, which I'm sure we'll talk about more later. But that was a nice change because it was obviously I was near the beach in Miami, and lived in Fort Lauderdale for a year or two, and so that was quite nice. I loved living there, and my whole life I'd lived in Texas.
Yeah.
Up until I don't know how old I was when I went to Miami, but I was well in my 40s. And then that was quite a change, and I enjoyed that. And then going from there, that's where I met my wife at a music conference there. And then she's from New Zealand, and I came over for Christmas, and we went literally to I'm going to forget the name of it now. We've been several times since, but it's just this bay that's out, like it's on the east coast of New Zealand, and it's just like, there's no reception out there. It's just like this bay that was just like gorgeous, and it's only a few people. Her dad's part of some group that owns that area, so they camp out there on Christmas quite often and other times throughout the year. But that was my introduction to New Zealand, and it was just like I was like, oh my gosh, this headspace is so quiet and beautiful here. Like I was just like, I think I could get used to this. So I sort of fell in love with it over that Christmas vacation, and then it just slowly evolved into, where are we going to live? We're going to be together. Where are we going to go? Yeah. So I was like, yeah, I think I'm ready for a change, man. I lived so much of my life in Texas, and then that little bit in Miami, and I was pretty much ready to go at that point. I needed that change.
Yeah, like you're saying, you've gone from like big city life, and then Miami was almost like a little stepping stone, wasn't it? It was a little introduction into a bit of nature, being next to the beach. And
yeah, and there was even like a little 7-month period prior. So when I went from Dallas, I actually stayed in New Mexico with my parents for 7 months, and that was quite freeing because I ended up house sitting for a friend of theirs out on the mesa, and it was just literally this house, like out near the canyon in these mountains, and like I could hardly even see another house. And so I was out there for like 7 months alone working on music. And that was very freeing. And then I went from that to Miami, and then that was very freeing. And then from that to New Zealand, and it's just been this like ever sort of increasing journey toward sort of I don't know, it's kind of a spiritual freedom for me, I guess, in a way.
Yeah, we've talked a little bit like that between you and I, haven't we, about the spiritual path and how it's kind of goes with nature and that kind of thing, you know?
Yeah, they're definitely, I mean, for me anyway, it doesn't seem like anything's sort of chaotic and disconnected. It very much feels like the choices I've made and the way I sort of look at things and in the world, like it really affects, your sort of external reality and what comes into being and stuff. So like, it's just been, trying to avoid the noise and all that and get to quieter and quieter places because that inevitably helps the music making.
Yeah.
So it all kind of goes hand in hand, really.
Yeah. And that's what we're going to touch on next, actually. I mean, I know we're talking about the outdoors here, but this specific podcast episode is about the indoor series. So it's all about the indoor hobbies that we all have. And there's one thing that you have brought from America with you, isn't there? From New Zealand, which is which you're very passionate about. It's your job, it's your hobby, and you also, like you said, you use it as your meditation. So do you want to let the guests know, the listeners know what that is?
Yeah. So, I got into the music. Like I said, I was originally like a big sporty guy when I was younger. And when that sort of ended in college, I sort of found myself in music. A friend of mine got me into doing like mobile DJing, and I sort of fell in love with that. And then that led to, I think that's when the rave scene was sort of exploding, and I sort of, stumbled into that as well. And there was a lot of freedom involved in that, and the whole music thing was really exciting. And gone from sort of being a lover of hip hop, which I still am to this day, but to house music.
Yeah.
At first, it was a little bit of everything because I didn't really, I was new to it all, and it was just like I was listening to a little bit of techno, a little bit of like sort of breakbeat, and it was just all over the place. And then it evolved to eventually becoming house as I got a little more mature in my taste, sort of discerning taste, and then from there,
very similar journey to mine, actually.
Yeah. So, and then it just became, that led to me, meeting my good friend in Dallas, Jay Caprice, through MySpace way back in the day. And we ended up producing music and then got stuff signed pretty quickly, and it just took off like so fast, and we started traveling, and then we both sort of, I needed to kind of move away, and that's when I went to New Mexico, and that's when I started producing on my own because it wasn't with him as much. And then that led to, me doing the thing under my 4-piece DJ name. And and then that turned into, the labels took off, ended up adding a couple more labels over time. And then I got the job at TrackSource and, doing the A&R managing work there. And it's just, and then I got another genre added to my, I started, because I do Jack and House at TrackSource. That's the genre I manage. And then I also do the lounge and chill out, which is quite nice as well. That's a fun genre to do because it's quite relaxing listening to all the music.
It sounds like a pretty interesting job, actually. Yeah, just like listening to music all day and checking things out, and yeah,
it's pretty much my dream job. So other than having to get up, the offices are in America, so I kind of have to. That's why I'm up so early. It's like 4:30 a.m. right here. I've been up since 2 a.m. But when you love what you do, it's not that bad.
Yeah. No, exactly. You make it happen, right? And I suppose, we've spoken a couple of times on the phone, and I know for a fact that you see some nice sunrises out there when you're getting up so early for work. So there's a bonus there, right?
Yeah, totally. I think, putting in almost a full work day before most people even get up, and then it sort of ends right around the time the sun's coming up. And so always that walk back over to the house from the studio is always, I see some amazing sunrises sometimes. So
yeah, I bet one.
And also coming out, I see a lot of, there's some interesting, when there's full moons and that kind of stuff too. So coming out at night, and I'll take breaks here and there and walk outside, and you can hear all the animals making noises. There's some cows in the distance, and you'll hear the ducks down at the pond and all that kind of stuff. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's not a bad way to spend the morning, is it?
No.
Oh, that's cool. So, just going back to the music production thing as well. So obviously that's your indoor hobby, stroke job, stroke passion. I mean, where does that take you, like mentally? Say you're, I don't know, stressed out about something or having a bit of a hard time. I mean, how do you? I know music for everyone is like, it takes, it does things to people, doesn't it? You just listen to some music and it makes you feel great. But you're talking about music production here now. So I mean, how does that help you?
I think it's everything. My view is that all of this that we're in is music. Most people might not see it that way, but the energy and vibration thing is what I think all this is. And at the end of the day, we're talking about music. So coming in and being able to sort of drop all the noise from the world and come into that really quiet, dark studio in the mornings. And, I do stuff during the day. It's when it turns daytime, I'll open the windows in the studio and let the light in and stuff. So it's nice kind of going between the two. Yeah. The two sort of settings there. But I don't know where I'd be without it. As loud as the world is today, if I didn't have this, like I'd have a hard time probably. I'd probably be like most other people and being caught up in all this and all this stuff. And instead, I find myself quite distant from it. Like it doesn't seem to really affect me. And that comes back to a little bit too about how your sort of external world sort of manifest. I think I've gone so hard to the music. Like I spend so much time working on music that I haven't given much room for anything else to take root, outside of my family stuff. So I think it's I think I'm here for a reason, to be honest. I mean, I feel like I'm in New Zealand, which is a place that hasn't really been on lockdown, particularly the area I'm in. Nothing's really felt any different. So I've been quite lucky, but sometimes I'm like, is it luck or, am I sort of willing myself to be here? Was this the place I was supposed to end up? Yeah. So that's, the music's everything, man. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, you're quite lucky, and well, not lucky, but very fortunate in some aspect where you've got your work at home as well. Like you say, you've got a little studio there, kind of a little separate from your house. So you've got everything kind of where you need it, basically, haven't you? You don't have to travel anywhere, so to speak, for anything apart from food, obviously. But it sounds like you're living a pretty nice life there.
Yeah, and even with the food, a lot of it we grow here on the land here. That's quite common in New Zealand. Like you'll drive around here, and you'll see everybody's got mandarin trees and avocado trees are everywhere, and it's just people grow food everywhere here, so it's quite different. That was something that was very obvious difference between America and here. It's even though it sort of has the capitalist system here as well, it hasn't. In America they don't allow that because people become direct competition with the grocery stores, and they don't want people growing tons of food. But here, that's never really taken over, at least not yet. And so everybody grows. Yeah, everybody's got gardens, and it's pretty cool. Yeah.
No, I love it. I was in New Zealand back in 2010 for 6 months traveling around, and exactly like you said, there was people growing certain things. I don't know if they still do this, but they used to have like food markets there where everyone would get together. So say someone sold potatoes and then someone sold kiwi fruits, someone, I don't know, grew carrots. You'd all get together and have like a market and then just like share each other's vegetables and stuff.
Yeah. And you see a lot of community gardens as well.
Yeah, it's so cool. It's anyway, yeah. What an amazing country to live in. It's pretty special.
Pretty lucky.
Yeah, man. Just going back to the music production thing as well. Has there been a time in your life where you've been quite low, like having a really hard time with something, or had something on your mind where you've really used the music production to kind of, keep you in a peaceful state of mind?
Yeah, I'm not really a person that ever, I would say, gets too depressed. I mean, I get down from time to, that I think the only thing I get upset about is that I have to work so hard, to that sort of like profit motive to keep money coming in. And, luckily I make money, and with music being devalued as much as it has over the years, to be one of the few sort of record labels and artists that is generating enough money I can live on, and obviously the track source job, helps with that as well. But all those things together, it's just all music. And so I'm able to, support everything I'm doing, which is amazing. At this point, I'm even supporting, I let my wife go back to school. She just finished school, which is, a lot of it's, she studied a lot of stuff with like nutrition and all that kind of stuff. So she was able to go do that. And that was pretty cool that the music allowed that as well. But I've never, going back to the original question, like I never went into like any type of deep depressive states at any point. I'm pretty positive for the most part. I just get tired. Like, I work a lot. And obviously the time difference from America, coming out here early in the morning, sometimes it catches up with me if I don't go to bed early enough.
Yeah, sure.
So, but it's definitely a therapy. I mean, getting out here always puts me, I got to get some time in almost every day, or I do get maybe a little grumpy, you could say.
Yeah.
I got to have that me time to kind of like whatever noise there is that is built up, like the music gets rid of it. And so I kind of, it's almost like my religion to be able to get out there and release that. And then,
yeah, sure.
And then I'm good. And then it's like, all right, I'm ready to sort of like face the world. Let's go for a walk. Let's go down to the beach, whatever it is we're going to do. Like I'm totally ready for it at that point, but I got to get my music time in and get ready.
Got to get your music fix, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm the same. I mean, a fair few years ago, I used to produce a little bit of music and everything. Never got anything released, unfortunately. I wasn't that great. But like, I used to love just going into my little room, switching on my computer, get Ableton going and just start making beats and some loops, and it would just take my mind away from everything,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a music lover anyway, but it's just, I don't know. It's just great making your own loops, making your own riffs. There's just something about it. It's just kind of,
Yeah, and there's this. It seems like every time I go to the studio and I push a little harder and the music gets better. I didn't have like a big music background, so like I said, I was a sports guy that played basketball all the time, and so when I did get into, but I always listened to music. My dad was a big, he loved the blues and stuff, and so it sort of rubbed off on me, I think.
Yeah,
and and so I forget where I was going with this question.
No worries. We'll move on to the next anyway. I was just going to ask you, like, why would you recommend people take this activity up as like a hobby, for example? I know there's a lot of people out there that like music, and with technology now, I've been out of the game for a little while, but I'm guessing there's some apps and some certain little things that you can use these days to make your own little kind of loops and stuff. I mean, would you recommend this activity for people to pick up for their mental state, to help them while they're kind of indoors?
Yeah, well, producing music, I mean, until you're, it's one of those things that if you're going to do it, I think you got to decide, if you're going to do it as a hobby or if you're going to do it to try to make a living. And if that decision is to make it, try to make a living off of it and do it full time, like you got to go all in. You can't sort of cheat and not spend like 100% of your time pretty much doing it. I mean, you have to sacrifice quite a bit because, to make a lot of money, because it's so devalued at this point, you've got to become a machine basically. Otherwise, if you just get like the sort of that therapeutic, and you just want to do it like as a hobby and just because you love it, and then maybe it'll turn into something, maybe it won't, but I do think it's important to try to, as much as you can, make that decision of, at least up front, are you going in 100% right off the bat, or are you just going to sort of mess around with it and then it may turn into something at some point. So,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the separation though, isn't it? I mean, like you just said then, it's whether you want it to make money for you, or whether you just want to kind of go home and spend a few hours on your computer and just make some little kind of loops and just be happy with that. So it takes your mind away from, I don't know, any problems you've got, or, just to kind of get a break from the real world kind of thing, which I guess I wouldn't say I used it for that, but I don't think I was as serious as like, right, I need to make money out of this. This is the way I want to go. It was more, for me, it was more like a release of like the love for music I had, and I was just kind of enjoying learning the programs, enjoying learning how to do different effects on instruments and all that kind of thing. That was the thing for me, I mean, if it took me further, obviously, yeah, great that, but I mean, I didn't really see it in that frame of mind, but obviously you've taken it that little step further, haven't you? You've gone, right, I really want to make something of this, and you have, clearly. I mean,
I would definitely recommend music for everybody in some form, like however, whether that's producing or listening or whatever you're doing. Like I almost think it's vital, to help keep your mind right. But particularly certain styles of music. I mean, I think house music is like, it's the energy component in it. I think this whole thing that we're in is energy, and I think things only last as long as the energy allows them to. And I think positive energy, there's negative energy and positive energy, and the positive energy always in the end outlasts the negative energy. So all this negative energy in the world, I think, is going to go away for those people who can stay positive. And so for music, to have music around that's in whatever form is vital, in my opinion. But if you go to the producer route and you really want to delve into it 100%, like, you got to dive. And it's hard. Like, so many people, I see people come in and they fail. They want to make it immediately, and then they disappear. A couple months later, it just eats people up and spits them out. So the fact that I've been doing it for I don't know how long now, about 30 years or something.
Yeah. Well, yeah, a good few years, man. And I know it's a very difficult kind of genre to make money, basically, especially these days, isn't it? And I mean, there's one question that I did have written down here for you, actually, which I didn't touch on, which I will now. And how's this whole kind of pandemic affected music sales? I mean, I would guess that it's kind of gone down, but then I could be totally wrong.
Yeah, so I think a lot of people would think that. And the funny thing is, now I think, let me preface this by saying, I think you're correct. A lot of other stores, I think, are feeling it. Let me start with that. But TrackSource, we're actually setting records every month. We set a huge record last month. Yeah. And so it just continues to sort of, I think it's that therapy thing. I think people are turning to it, and it's particularly a house music thing. And that's why, it's because TrackSource is focused specifically on house music. So, and it's a very positive, uplifting, sort of spiritual type music, right? So,
Absolutely.
It's a fuel source, if you ask me. It's literally a fuel source. And so people, when times get dark and tough, like, and people they get depressed. I mean, what depression, in my opinion, is you kind of running out of fuel, and things like stress, which is just noise on a musical level. We're just talking about noise, brings that it drains your energy. And if people made the connection, like I think I have, where like, things like noise and stress, and that's what stress is noise. And it manifests itself in all these different ways. And so getting rid of that noise is how I think that's why a lot of people in music, like I look at people in my music friends online on social media compared to my high school friends, and my music friends are quite a lot more sort of like progressive and liberal, and look at the world in a brighter light, and dial into sources of energy that are a little more positive, I would say. And then my friends from high school back in Texas are a little more conservative. And I mean, it's amazing how much older, at the same age, how much older my friends from high school look than my music friends. And there's something to that. I think there's something to that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah. Going back to the question I just asked, about is it affecting the sales, and you've said no.
Right.
You're getting kind of record sales. I mean, that just goes to show it's not all about the clubbing scene, is it? Like a lot of people just think people just want to go and get drunk and do whatever they want to do and go to these clubs and get high, and it's all, the music's just about that. But this, to me, just proves it's not, not all to do with that at all, is it? People are still buying music to listen to at home, probably dancing around their lounges to it.
Yep.
That's a great sign.
Yeah,
that's a great sign.
Yeah. It's. I wasn't too shocked, to be honest. I think that's. I think in a way, if there's a positive you want to spin out of all this stuff that's happening in the world, I think it's that I think a lot of us needed to learn a lesson. Particularly some of us in the music world, that just how important this thing was to us. And I think what we did was we let a lot of that negative energy in. So, if we make it out of this on the other side, for all of us that do, I think hopefully we've learned our lesson, and we'll be a little more protective of our culture and our community, and not letting those negative energies in, and everybody taking the music a little more serious, and not trying to be gatekeepers and all that kind of stuff. And I think I'm seeing a lot of positive, man. So I mean, I think there's gonna be a real silver lining to this whole thing, at least from a musical perspective anyway. It was almost needed in a way. I hate to say that, but
yeah. I mean, it could have happened for a reason, right?
Yep.
So there we go. And I mean, and obviously music's very important to you, but when you're outdoors with your family, or if you go for a hike on your own, I suppose with your family you wouldn't listen to music when you're outdoors, but if you go for a hike or something outdoors on your own, do you generally listen to music in your headphones, or do you like listening to the nature sounds, like whatever surrounds you?
I definitely like the nature sounds. I probably would listen to music more. But usually when I go on these walks, I go with the wife and the kiddos, so it'd be probably a little bit rude to jam it out to music while they're walking with me.
Yeah, it wouldn't work. That's why I kind of rephrased my question.
Yeah. But I don't because of that.
Yeah.
Because I rarely get to walk on my own. I wish I could just take off sometimes and go do that. But I'll go out in the yard sometimes to walk around. We got quite a big property here, so it's you can walk around it, and sometimes on a nice day, and it almost feels like you're in a park a little bit. But
yeah, I know. For myself personally, I love music and stuff. But over the last few years, I go out on hikes a lot more now without my headphones. I just kind of, it's my time to just listen to the nature sounds, and it just kind of, I don't know, it's a different experience, I always used to take my headphones everywhere I went. I had to listen to music, and I'd get in that zone, and I'd love it, which I still do, obviously. But there's something about just having them sounds of nature as well, It's like today I've just been for a nice little walk along this coast. I'm just on the South Wales coast here, and just went out for a couple of hours before. Oh, it's just beautiful listening to the waves. Haven't heard the waves for a few weeks, so it's quite pleasurable. Which you get there quite often.
Yeah, we have a place called the Mount here. That's it's an old volcano.
Yeah, I've been there. I've been to where you live. Yeah.
That's a big tourist spot.
Taronga, isn't it? You live.
Yep. So yeah, you can either walk around it, or there's a couple different paths you can take. Some are harder than others that go up to the top. If you want sort of a physical challenge. But usually we just take the kids and walk around the bottom, and the ocean waves are always lapping up on the shore. We always you see a lot of like seals, and I'm still waiting to try to catch a whale. That hasn't happened yet, but it does happen here on occasion. But so one day hopefully I'll see it.
Yeah, I've seen some whales down in Kaikoura actually, which is a bit further south than where you are. It's on the opposite island, but yeah, it's on the same kind of coast east. So yeah, I guess they swim past where you are too.
Yeah.
No, cool. And a question I'm asking my guests is whether you've got like a story of gratitude, basically a little life story where you've just felt like really grateful for like the most simple things in life,
Pretty much all of it, man. I mean, it's like if I look back, sort of the story of my life and see how each event sort of led to the next, it's pretty humbling, and then and then to look forward, and see kind of what's coming in the future. I almost had to cancel this podcast because we're going up to see our land that we bought, this weekend, because they've started clearing the land this week. So super excited about that. The containers and all that stuff show up next week. So yeah, things were about to get a little crazy, I think. So I was like, oh no, I might have to move it back 2 weeks, but I'm glad we're getting to do it.
Thanks for making the time for it, buddy.
So yeah, very great, a lot of gratitude for, very gracious that I found the music. I mean, it probably found me.
And I remember you saying as well, I mean, just the whole kind of move to New Zealand, the way your life's kind of panned out from going to Texas to Miami to where you are now. You're just purely grateful for that whole thing, aren't you, basically,
Yeah. And it gets quieter along the way. That's the thing, is it seems like my life just, which I love the sort of peace and quiet that my sort of way of living has allowed me to have. I mean, I'm listening to music, which isn't quiet, but it gets your mind to a quiet place, though.
Exactly. That's a good way of putting it. Absolutely.
Yeah. So very, very grateful.
No, yeah. And would you ever go back to city life?
Hell no. Hell no.
Never. Really?
Nope.
Not even tempted?
No, I mean, just to visit, like, it's almost like it's a circus now. Like, you go to, it's just like an attraction. Like, we go maybe to Auckland. We always sort of dread it. I hate driving through Auckland. And it's like, I'm just like, oh, every time we go through, like, we say the same thing. Because we got to drive through there whenever we go up to our land, too, because it's up north.
Right.
And every time we drive through, I'm just looking at everything and just the congestion and everything's stacked on top of each other, and there's construction everywhere and noise and pollution. I'm just like, man, how did we get duped into thinking this is how you live? This is crazy.
Yeah, man. And I'm guessing Texas is a lot bigger than Auckland as well.
Yeah. I mean, Auckland's quite large, but being from Dallas Fort Worth, it doesn't get much. I mean, probably New York's probably the only if you combine Dallas and Fort Worth together, it's like, I forget, there's like more shopping and restaurants per square mile in Dallas Fort Worth than there is in New York. It's like, it's insane.
Yeah. Crazy, man.
We used to pick up DJs from the airport and like take us an hour to get back to our house, and they were just like, are we still in Dallas? And it's like, yeah, we're still in this, pretty much. I mean, on the outskirts, but driving from one side of Fort Worth to Dallas takes like forever.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. I mean, yeah, I've been some pretty big cities in my time, and it is unbelievable how long it can take to get from one side to another sometimes, right?
Yeah, it's just...
Yeah, it's not something I enjoy, to be honest, either. It's like you say, it's nice dipping in, but it's nice to get out, isn't it? And, get back to the headspace, which is the nature.
Yeah, it's exciting. I mean, I miss the one thing I miss is, I miss a lot of the food, I have to admit. But, the nightlife stuff, obviously, the music, being able to go and sort of, I miss dancing. I don't get to dance as much here, so that was always a big form of exercise for me. I used to dance quite a bit, so don't get to do that much here unless I'm just in the studio by myself.
I was going to say, start dancing in the studio. It could be a new little hobby for yourself. Keep your trim as well.
Yeah, I do what I can.
Oh, nice one, Matt. It's been great talking. That's kind of the end of the questions for you, but I've got a little section at the end called Turn the Table, which is where the guest gets to ask me a question if they want. So I don't know whether you've got a question there for me or whether you just want to leave it.
I guess I can't really remember. You sort of mentioned how we met with music. Obviously, music being the big thing in my life. Like, I'm curious as to like your sort of like what got you into it. Like, was it always part of your life, or was it something you sort of stumbled into, like I did, or
music?
Yeah, like what was your sort of gateway? Like
my history.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, pretty much all my life. My mum and dad were big into music, and I used to play their 7-inch vinyls that they used to buy. It's all kind of like rock and blues, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I got into hip hop when I was about, I'd say 10. I remember my friend got the first Public Enemy album, and he got it from Manchester, one of the big cities in the UK, and brought it back down to the little valley we were living in Wales, and he put it on his little on tape.
Yeah.
And I just loved hip hop ever since then, and I was buying vinyl at that age, basically from 10 onwards.
Yep.
And I think I must have been, let me think, I must have been about 12, 13, and the first electronic song that I got into, it was The Prodigy, Charlie.
Yep.
I don't know if you remember that.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah, so that's the first kind of electronic kind of rave song that I heard, and I was like, I like that sound.
Yeah.
And long story short, I got into kind of hardcore drum and bass, and was DJing in my bedroom throughout this whole time as well. Bought myself some Technics 1210s, and then it kind of just led on. And then, like you, I got into house music a little bit more. I preferred the more laid back vibe and that kind of thing. And then that kind of went on to me producing a little bit, just in my room, just kind of like a bedroom producer, so to speak. And yeah, that was it really. And just DJ'd in a few clubs in the UK.
Nice.
About 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I had a little residency in one of the local towns there.
Yeah, nice.
And that was that's it really. And I kind of got out of the DJing thing probably when I went traveling, actually, about 2010. I kind of knocked it on the head, and I just kind of went with I went down the travel route, and that was kind of it. But I always listen to music. I still listen to music everywhere I go, but I've gone a lot more laid back now. I do like my down tempo stuff. Some genres I don't even know what I would call them, to be honest with you, because they're just kind of like, I'd say 100 BPM, just quite deep, kind of almost spiritual kind of sound. There's a lot of like natural drumming and that kind of thing,
Right.
But I'll never stop loving house music. It's good. I think that's just inside you.
House music is like the celebration of life. Like I always say that I feel like what deep down we're all sort of connecting with is this feeling of like the sort of like power thing that happens with house, and being around all these people that are sort of into the same thing and moving together and all this sort of, it's definitely sort of a, it's almost like, I've survived, like I'm coming out the other side of this stuff, and we'll be here to, I think there's going to be a big after party. Let's just put it that way. We're planning on having some at our land, but I'm looking forward to actually, some of these people get on my nerves from time to time, but I'm looking forward to actually seeing them, most of them again. So, I think everybody's going to be a new, improved version of themselves.
Absolutely, and I bet everyone's dying for a good old stomp, a good dance as well, you know.
Totally.
No, that's cool, Matt. Well, thanks so much for talking to me. Thanks for your question at the end there. I appreciate you taking the time out. You've got a very busy life over there, I know, and I'd love to get over to come and see you at some point if, you know, travel opens again at some point and you're kind of at a place where I can come over and we can visit you. That'll be awesome.
Yeah, well, I think it'll happen. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. Okay, buddy. Well, thank you, Matt, and I'll speak to you again soon.
Thanks for having me on, man.
No worries, buddy. Take care.
All right, see ya.
See you, mate. Bye. Well, there we go. I thoroughly enjoyed that chat with Matt. Talking about music brought back many great memories for me, and it also reinforced how powerful music can be. It's a great tool for gaining clarity and definitely has a healing power, which I've used for my own benefit many times in life. Music production clearly works as a form of meditation for Matt. Locking yourself into a studio and creating a song is not only therapeutic, but it's also artistic, creative, and educational. So, if you like your music and you like the idea of putting some songs together, why not give it a go yourself? It can be a great little hobby, and you don't have to take it too seriously. It's just good old fun, and something that may help you maintain a peaceful frame of mind on those days where you can't get out into nature. And who knows, it may lead to bigger things. Thank you once again for tuning in. If you want to join us over on Facebook and Instagram, then search for My Meditation Podcast. I'll leave the links to both in the show notes, as well as the link to the official My Meditation Podcast channel, which you're more than welcome to subscribe to. The Facebook and Instagram page offer positive, inspiring and light-hearted quotes, photos and videos designed to bring a little happiness into your life. If you found any value from this podcast, I'd highly appreciate it if you could rate it and review it. And if you're feeling extra passionate, then please feel free to share it with the world and spread the word. It all helps the channel grow, which in turn means we can reach more people, which means helping more people. These podcasts are getting released every fortnight, so I hope you can join us for the next, and who knows, it could be about an interesting hobby or activity that could possibly be a life changer for you. Until then, take care and have fun, folks. Peace.